All right, so shalom, shalom, Israel, and welcome back. Today I'm going to talk to you about immunity. And immunity is something that I have benefited from for over 20 years. And a number of people often wonder, like, how do you do this? It's normally um, something that your average person, they would have to pay the fine or they go to jail, for it. So I want to be able to point out some things based on the Bible and what we call law and, how they deal with law and the Constitution. And I kind of want to go through some things that we've kind of tried to say is truth, but it's not true. And what I mean by that is whenever you talk about your rights, or exercising your rights, you have people that tell you, oh, man, you're going to go to jail, or you can't do that, or they're going to lock you up, or, you're a sovereign citizen, or, there are a number of things that are out here. But my life experience has shown me otherwise, and I don't deal with sovereign citizens. I tell people to stay away, from that. In fact, I honestly believe that the creation of the sovereign citizen and that whole movement was really meant to muddy the waters. So when someone truly comes with an understanding and knowing how to function to benefit from their right, then it's to deter people away. But what I love about today is we like to look at what's written. Like when we get into the Bible, we say, this is written or that's written. Well, when it comes to the Constitution and our rights, I found there's a comparison or there's a parallel, there. And if it's not written, then I don't fool with it. For example, it's written that the state cannot create laws that diminish the rights of the people. And when I say that to individuals, they're like, man, you got to be kidding me, because we see it happen all the time. But that's only out of ignorance, because we don't understand, these things. And it doesn't benefit them to, like, really share these things with us. So I'm just kind of here to, build on the foundation of what we have in Israel right now. A lot of the brothers, a lot of the camps, they deal with history, right? And they do it very well. So I see that my expertise, as I would be considered an expert witness, to some sense, is in this thing called the Constitution. It's centered around our rights, and I've been able to do certain things that the average person can't do. And someone said to me at one time, they were like, Zion, man, what you're doing is beautiful, but, if other people can't benefit from it, then what good is it? So I understand that, and I created a justice initiative to help build education and have others to understand how these things work. It doesn't make sense if you have rights, but you don't know how to benefit. You can't get the benefit from it, or you have rights and you don't know how to exercise it, or you say stuff like, yeah, you have rights, but the white folks do, what they want to do. To some extent that is true, but it's not when your position is right. For example, if you classify yourself as black, or a resident of the state, then yeah, they're going to do what they want to do. But when you understand how to use the law from the standpoint of a constitutional right, something that God gave you, and this is what I'm going to get into, not just talking, but, just from an introductory standpoint, just showing you some things based on what's written. Like, we need to understand how equal protection under the law works, right? And looking at today with a lot of what's going on within the Jewish community and how they're trying to ban certain conversations, well, when we understand what equal protection under the law is and knowing what our rights are pertaining to our heritage, they can't pass no laws that prevent us from speaking with respect to our beliefs and our heritage, right? They can't do it. But when you don't understand these things, man, they can pass all kind of laws they want, and that's what they do from a statutory standpoint, and they wait to see if the law is going to be challenged. And when the law is challenged, then it's understood to be null and void, right? It's understood to be unconstitutional. But they have a lot of scare going on right now with trying to ban certain discussions, certain conversations. But I want to talk to you about immunity and, get you to understand this is real, and the entire community of Israel can benefit from immunity. And what I'm going to start doing is going into like this constitutional law and explaining how it can benefit us as Israel, right? No different than it benefited Paul back then as a Roman, right? So we just need to understand that dynamic and trust and believe. Don't wait for them to come and explain these things to us. They're not. But I realized the Creator gave me this understanding, and he put me on that journey before I came into the understanding of the truth. And when I saw, how it was coming together, I was like, okay, I see. I understand, what needs to be done and what conversation I need to have. So to demystify all of that, where people are talking about, yeah, you can talk all that right stuff you want, you're going to go to jail. No, I'm going to show you the facts, the research. I have years and years of research, and again, the track record, my track record, it stands for itself. Looking at here most recently, I was charged with 5 different charges, and 2 of them were considered very serious charges, right? But in May, I received a notice from the solicitor saying they were not going to pursue any charges. They weren't going to file an accusation, and this has happened continually throughout my life for over 20 years. So I just need to share these experiences with you, and hopefully you can learn from the research that I'm putting out, and we don't have to walk around on eggshells. We can use the power of God's law, the law that God gave us, for a heritage, to supersede and trump these statutory laws that they're putting, in place. And again, not because I think so, or because this is how I feel, just like we go into the Bible and we say, this is written, I'm going to show you what's written. And that's how I came to the point of understanding, oh my goodness, when I saw the SOPs for arrest and for search and seizure and, all these different court cases, I was like, man, we all can benefit from this. The only issue is we don't have the education. We don't have anyone explaining and or providing the research for us. So all we know are the bad stories, and all we see, are the YouTube videos of, people doing ridiculous and unfounded things, right? But by the grace of God, I can show you something different. So this is just introductory, and, for me today to just open up the discussion, I want to talk about immunity, okay? And bring your mind to know there's something called equal protection under the law. And then we have to look at what are the elements surrounding equal protection of the law to then know that there are certain things that we can do well within our right and can't nobody do nothing about it as long as we're not injuring anyone, as long as we're not damaging anyone's property, right? We can do it, all right? So I just want to, express, and I have some notes here, that I've read, and I kind of want to read them. Then I'm going to go into some scriptures, and then I'm going to go into some case law, and, kind of talk about the Constitution. And the reason I do this is because you must know when we're out here on the streets, the main individual from the agency that we're going to encounter is a law enforcement officer. So I spent a lot of time like understanding what guides policing, and it kind of blew my mind that a number of people, out here from your NAACPs and all these other, civil rights groups, none of them like have really taken the time to understand what guides policing. But when you look at what guides policing, that's like looking at the rule book. And when I saw the rule book, I was just kind of blown away. I'm like, wow, here is the limitation with respect to what they can, what they can't do. And it's not based on, I think somebody said this and how we feel and, they got all this power. It's like, no, the rule book, man. I say to individuals, it's sad that when we sat down to play our first game of Uno, if you decided to play basketball, football, checkers, chess, spades, anything that we got involved with, the first thing we had to do was learn the rules. So when it came to policing, I thought I would sit down and learn the rules. And the thing that showed what was guiding the everyday practices of law enforcement out there on the street, it said the Constitution and the court cases. So I spent a lot of time pulling research dealing on these court cases and the Constitution to understand how the everyday practices, worked and the SOPs. And because I was already dealing with constitutional law, man, I was able to see, or find their vulnerabilities and the things that we've been lied to about and the things that they've exaggerated on. And, again, but because we don't have any true advocacy, in our community, then there's a narrative, out there that they're all powerful. But it's smoke and mirrors, man. It's the Wizard of Oz, right? So I just want to share, some things with you guys and kind of, hopefully touch on how I've been able to benefit from immunity from over some 20 years, right? So, but who is sovereign before God? And which law shall stand before God's law? You go to James 4:12. James 4:12, it says, there is one lawgiver, who is able to save and to destroy. Who art thou that judge another? Right? So there's one lawgiver. And this is what they know. And what's going to blow your mind when we get into this and we start going into the unalienable right and how it came from God, man, I'm going to show you something that I know no one has ever really broke it down or showed you this before. And again, I'm not going into what I think and what I feel. I'm just going to show you, what's written. 1 Corinthians, let's look at this. And this is just, some basic stuff, right? 1 Corinthians 6:2. It says, do ye not know that the saints shall judge the world? See, with God's law, we're going to judge the world, not with man's law. We're going to do it with God's law because God is sovereign before all. But today, we're functioning under man's law, right? But the saints will judge the world. And if the world shall be judged by you, talking about the children of Israel, right? Are ye unworthy to judge the smallest matters? See, that goes into Christianity where they say, you can't judge me or, it's not right to judge others. They don't know what they're talking about. Because right here in 1 Corinthians, it's expressed we're going to judge the world, so we should be able to judge the small matters. The issue is, do we know the law so that we can judge righteously? If we don't know the law to judge righteously, then we can't, right? That's why we're learning. We're getting reacclimated to these things, coming back to our heritage, which brings me to the point where I have to express normally, as I always do, that I'm not talking about religion, although I'm dealing with the Bible, right? Religion was made by man. Christianity was made by man. Those things do not work. I am here to talk to you about our heritage, coming back to our heritage, that we can have the power and benefit that God meant for us to have as the children of Israel, right? It's not about black, it's not about color, although God said his people are like a speckled bird. What this is about is, are you of the chosen people, that bloodline, right? I know we're of the kingdom of Judah. We're right here in America, still in the land of our captivity. So I put a lot of emphasis on talking to you, Judah, because Judah has to be raised up first, right? We're going to be the lawgivers. We're going to be the ones in control of this thing, and that's what they want to stop. So not dealing with religion, but focused on this from our heritage and looking to show how the power stands with us if we function from our heritage, our nationality, then we can receive the benefit from our rights over their statutes, right? And we can receive immunity, from doing these things, understanding it, all right? So anyway, Genesis 49:10, it says, the scepter shall not depart from Judah, nor a lawgiver from between his feet, until Shiloh come. And unto him shall the gathering of the people be. This is saying, right now we're prophesying in part. We're understanding what we understand, and, at the appointed time, the king is going to reveal himself, and he's going to clarify and give us the thorough understanding of what is. But right now, we're prophesying in part based on what we have to work with, and we're functioning off of faith, understanding that every word of God is true, right? Psalms 148:14, it says, he also exalt the horn of his people. Now, who is his people but the children of Israel? Right? The 12 tribes. Judah in the front. That's his people. Right? It says, he also exalt the horn for his people, the praise of all his saints, even of the children of Israel. See, the children of Israel, we are the saints. These are the saints. It says, a people near unto him, nobody else. Just the children of Israel. That's why this is about our heritage. That's why this is about our nationality. Don't be afraid to claim your nationality, because being black, being African American, Negro, super Negro, whatever your pronoun is, none of those things matter, right? Those things keep you subjugated to the powers that be. Right? But if we want to understand how to function within the purpose of God's law, and how the laws that they've created, and they've written this stuff down that they cannot touch, the laws that God have put out and the rights that God gave to his people. Let's go on, with this, because I know this is new information for a number of you, right? But God's voice is strong in the land, and we're coming out and we're casting down these imaginations. And for his people in the land of our captivity, some of us will be shown compassion, right? Okay. 1 Corinthians 6:3, it says, know ye not that we shall judge angels? And this is what I'm saying. We're going to judge the world. And as we learn this law and we come to understand what's right, we can tell and we can talk to one another and say, hey, you shouldn't be doing, that, or make this correction. And it shouldn't be seen, as something evil, right? Tell that woman to come out of them pants, put on a dress, be modest. Man, you don't have to look homely. You can turn it into something nice and fly. I know we got style, right? Tell the men, stop being whoremongers, right? These are the things that we can judge these things, and we can correct, each other. He says, know ye not that we shall judge angels? How much more things that pertain to this life? So in Christianity, where they're telling you, you can't judge me or judge not, lest you be judged, man, they don't know what they're talking about. That scripture specifically speaks to you can't be no hypocrite trying to judge somebody. That's what it means when it says judge not, lest you be judged. You can't be no hypocrite in trying to judge someone. But if you have an understanding of the law and you're living within that law, then you can judge. As it said, we're going to judge, we're going to judge entire nations. So we can't judge, these small matters that we're dealing with, right? That's why we have to deal with this from the standpoint of the heritage and not the religion. The religion, man, it got us all screwed up. And the religion is designed to keep us under the control, of the enemy. Let me just say it, like that, right? To keep us under the control of the white people, to keep us within the colonization, right? So let's go to Habakkuk 1:4. It says, therefore, the law is slack, and judgment do never go forth. For the wicked do compass about the righteous. Therefore, wrong judgment proceed. And this is what we see within the legal system that they have. We're always receiving, an improper judgment, right? Wisdom of Solomon 2:11. It says, let our strength be the law of justice. For that which is feeble is found to be nothing worth. And that's how they look at us. And they've created this system of law. It's corrupt, but they're using it to entangle us. They're using it to trap us up, right? And they don't value or see any value in us. They still think we're savage, right? They still think, we're unintelligent, right? Although they know in truth who we are. We are the children of Israel. We are the chosen people of the Most High God, and they are at the end of their rope. The world is collapsing around them, and they know it, right? Ecclesiasticus 34:4, it says, of an unclean thing, what can be cleansed? So when you look at this law that they have and how corrupt it is, there's nothing good that can come out of it, right? And from that thing which is false, what truth can come? So the way that they've set up their system of law is like we can't try to go into the way they want to navigate it and think some truth is going to come out of it. We have to know how to stand outside, of that and implement the system of law that the Most High God gave us, because he is the lawgiver, and they've written the law that said when it comes to the rights of the people, they can't create any laws that will diminish it. And the rights of the people are the laws that God gave his people. That's what we're going to touch on, right? That's the connection that has been like over our head, for so many years. But by the grace of God, I'm able to talk about it today. And hopefully, you understand and see what's being said, and you're not, caught up into the internet stories and all this other stuff that people out there doing. Yeah, I encourage you not to do, what they're doing, but look at what's written and come to understand how it works, that you too can benefit from immunity, right? Psalms 147:19. It said, he showed his word unto Jacob. This is where we get into the good part, right? He showed his word unto Jacob. So y'all pay attention. His statutes and judgments unto Israel. He have not dealt so with any nation. Look at it. God showed his word, his statutes and judgments to Israel. He haven't dealt so with any other nation. This is what's written, right? And as for his judgments, he says, They have not known them, praise ye the Lord. Talking about the other nations. Like the white folks now that rule in the justice system that they got, they're not dealing with the judgments of God. As he say, they have not known them. Right? He gave his statutes, his word unto Jacob. He haven't dealt so with any other nation. Y'all pay attention. He said when it came to his judgments, he said, they have not known them. Praise ye the Lord. Right? Now, we're going to get into, unalienable, right? Unalienable rights. Because we've heard this terminology, but we really hadn't made, any sense out of it, how it applies. But let's remember, right? He showed his word unto Jacob. He showed his word unto Jacob, his statutes and judgments unto Israel. He have not dealt so with anybody else. And when it comes to the other nations, when it comes to his judgments, his words, his statutes, they have not known them. All right, so now we want to talk about unalienable rights. And we want to know, where do unalienable rights come from? Right? This is where it gets good. So listen at this. Unalienable. Incapable of being alienated, that is, sold and transferred. That comes out of Black's Law Dictionary, the 6th edition, on page 1523, right? And here's a quote. You can't surrender, sell, or transfer unalienable rights. They are a gift from the Creator. See, unalienable rights come from the Creator. That's it. Now you got to remember, God said he didn't show, he said he gave his word, to Jacob, his statutes and judgments to Israel. He said when it comes to the other people, he said they didn't know it. So right here, you see it saying that unalienable rights are a gift from the Creator. So that kind of brought my attention to say, well, wait a minute then. If God only gave, his statutes and judgments to Israel, then only Israel can have unalienable rights. How can anybody else qualify to say that they have unalienable rights if they're not Israel, if God say they have never dealt with his statutes? Right? So, let's keep going. Right? Unalienable rights. He says they are a gift from the Creator to the individual and can't, under any circumstances, be surrendered or taken. This is what we're talking about. All individuals have unalienable rights. Now you have to go back and you have to look at Psalms 147, 19 and 20. Because they said all individuals have rights. But according to what's written, Psalms 147, 19 and 20, he says he showed his word unto Jacob, his statutes and judgments unto Israel. He hath not dealt so with any other nation. Right? His judgments, they have not known them. Praise ye the Lord. So when they say all individuals have unalienable rights, it then comes to say, how do they substantiate that? Right? They can't. Because all individuals can't have unalienable rights if God is saying he only showed, his word and his statutes and judgments to Israel. And he said when it comes down to the other nations, the other people, he says they have not known them. So this part right here is incorrect when it says all individuals have unalienable rights. But that's the storyline that they push, even in Christianity, like anybody and everybody can be a part of what God has going on. But y'all, let's look at what's written and let's make them stand on it or take it down, right? And this, what I'm reading, this definition, this is coming from an article, Panama City News Herald, right? Comparing inalienable to unalienable rights. So you can go look that up and you can see the article for yourself. Now, mind you, it's an article, man. People can write anything. We know this, right? But because I have an understanding of this stuff, and as I'm looking at it, I know, it to have some truth, in there. And I can point out, for example, like where it says all individuals, have unalienable rights, to where I can say, that part right there is not accurate, because we just, looked at it according to what Psalms 147, 19 and 20 have said. So it raises the question, right? So now, Panama City News Herald, comparing inalienable to unalienable rights, right? So now let's look at inalienable rights. Inalienable rights, rights which are not capable of being surrendered or transferred without the consent of the one possessing such right. Now that comes out of case law being Morrison versus State. That's where that came from. But that case law is something that you can stand on. That case law is something that's written. Now, the key or the trick to this, they switched it from unalienable to inalienable, because now they're saying, you can have these rights from God. They can't be surrendered or transferred without consent. And that's the doggone trick in today's time, is they imply consent. And unless you know how to refute the fact that they're presuming this stuff, then, the implication based on them thinking you're consenting to it, that's how they try to make it stick, as if it stands. These are the games that they've played, with us over the years, right? Consent, everything. They need your consent. That's why they're always asking you, do you understand something? No, I don't understand. I don't know how we got to, this point, right? But they want you to say you understand, because that then shows that you're giving consent, right? All right, so then it says, apparently, inalienable is the more common spelling. But historically, that wasn't always the case, right? Because time passed, unalienable was the word. But as they got more crafty and they realized they couldn't get around the unalienable, they created this inalienable and said, we need consent. And we can use implied, consent, right? They crafty, boy. Don't wait for them to come and explain, these things, or to break out this type of research, because it doesn't benefit them to do so. But I'm thankful, the Most High God has given me this understanding that I can have this conversation with you today, right? Then it says, most are familiar with unalienable after being introduced to it in history class while learning this specific passage from the Declaration of Independence. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Now, a lot of people, they look at this and they say, when white folks wrote this, they weren't talking about us, and they weren't including us in. Guys, that's true. They did not. But you have to remember, we were not acknowledged at that time based on our status either. We were acknowledged as property, right? We were acknowledged, as chattel. So that's why it's important that we don't allow ourselves to be acknowledged as black, as African American, as any other byword, but we come to understand what our nationality is, and what our heritage is, because now we can stand on what God gave us as the law of life for the heritage. Because here in the Declaration, they're saying, that they are endowed by their Creator. See, Now, you can only validate this when you talk about the Creator, because the Creator just told us in Psalms 147 that he was only dealing with Jacob and Israel. These are the only ones that know his law. So they're trying to glean in, on that to say, oh, now they also have, these unalienable rights. But how? Right? How? How do they have them if God, based on what's written, he said when it came to the other nations, he was like, he ain't dealing with them. They don't know his laws or his statutes. So how could they have unalienable rights? Unalienable rights are specifically tied to the children of Israel. I know this is your first time hearing it, right? But you need to understand it based on what's written and how they've misguided these words over the years, and they've tried to use the prominence of them being white or white society or the colonization of them being in rule. They tried to use it to push their agenda along. But in today's time, it's falling apart. It's falling apart. So even though when it came to the Declaration of Independence that they did not consider us, the mere fact, based on how it's written, they cannot exclude us. And now we're coming in based on rightful heir and owner and saying, oh, that applies to us. When you talk about the Creator and having certain unalienable rights, I can show you how that applies to me, because here God dealt with Jacob. God dealt with Israel. This is who he gave his law, his statute, his judgments to, right? Then it says, the dominance of unalienable versus inalienable has changed over time as preference has evolved over the years. Why? Because they got a stronger benefit off of the inalienable, because they can throw implied consent, on it. Right? And it's your job, my job, it's our job to know the difference and not let them imply these things, but make the correction to say, no, this is who I am, this is what I'm doing, this is how I'm operating, this is the function. Otherwise, they're going to throw something on you that benefits their agenda and their law, their way, but God is sovereign. Right? God's law supersedes all other law. They know this to be true, and they've written it within their law. Can't get around it. The thing is, they never thought we would come to the point of being able to comprehend and take ownership of our heritage. Man, they screwed up, right? We waking up. And this thing, the house of cards they have, it's falling down, right? So here, let's read this again. Unalienable, it says incapable of being alienated. That is sold and transferred. That's Black's Law Dictionary, 6th edition, page 153. And then they said all individuals have rights. All individuals have unalienable rights. So I'm going to read for you again why all individuals can't have unalienable rights, and only certain individuals can have unalienable rights based on what's written. Psalms 147:19, it says, he showed his word unto Jacob. Right? So when you say all individuals, you can only be talking about those that are tied to Jacob, his statutes and judgments unto Israel. He have not dealt so with any nation. So how can all people have unalienable rights if they wrote within the declaration that these are rights that come from the Creator? The Creator only gave these rights to the children of Israel. Right? He said, and for his judgments, he says, they have not known them, talking about the other nations. So when they wrote, all individuals have unalienable rights, God is saying he never dealt with them. He's saying they don't know anything about his judgments. They're not even qualified to write that, but, they tried to take advantage of the time and situation, right? So now you go to Psalms 50 and 16, it says, "But unto the wicked God say, what hast thou to do to declare my statutes?" Right? This is what we're talking about. When they sit up and they try to say all individuals, have unalienable rights, God says, what hast thou to do to declare my statutes? Or that thou should take my covenant in thy mouth. It don't look good for them right now, based on what's written, right? Looking at the parallels as to what they wrote and what God wrote. He says, seeing thou hate instruction, right? See, they hate instruction because they know that this stuff is for the children of Israel, but they don't want to honor that. They hate instruction. They know that the children of Israel is supposed to lead the way and they should serve the children of Israel, but their ego, their pride won't allow them. They hate instruction, right? And cast my words behind thee, right? So they'll take, the law of our Father and they'll pervert it. And they'll create a law that benefits them. He says, but unto the wicked God say, what hast thou to do to declare my statutes? Or that thou should take my covenant in thy mouth. Get it out your mouth. It don't belong to you. Seeing thou hate instruction and hast cast my word behind thee. Right? Look at Psalms 94 and 19. In the multitude of my thoughts within me, thy comforts delight my soul. Right? Shall the throne of iniquity have fellowship with thee, which frameth mischief by the law? That's what they do, right? The throne of iniquity, right? They've taken, aspects of this law and they've framed mischief by the law. And now trying to act as if, there's some pious, people and there's justice, within what they have. No, man. Shall the throne of iniquity have fellowship with thee, O Zion? No. Which frameth mischief by the law? You know it to be true. That's what they do. They frame mischief by the law. They gather themselves together against the soul of the righteous and condemn innocent blood. That's what they do. That's what they did when they created the Declaration of Independence and had us in them chains and treated us like chattel, right? Innocent blood, right? They gathered, the souls of the righteous. They condemned innocent blood. It says, but the Lord is my defense, and my God is the rock of my refuge. And this is what I'm saying, because now we can stand on God's law over their law. We can take claim, of it, and we can use it to beat back all of the instances of law based on the mischief that they're trying to, propose, right? God's law is supreme. They know it to be true. Right? He says, but the Lord is my defense, and my God is the rock of my refuge. Right? And he shall bring upon them their own iniquity, and shall cut them off in their own wickedness. Yea, the Lord our God shall cut them off. Guys, this is written. The wickedness that they're doing, it's like the son of perdition. He's being exposed on all different levels. And by the grace of God, I pray to expose him in this manner right here as well. Right? Y'all follow along. Psalms 83, and 3. It says, they have taken crafty counsel against thy people and consulted against thy hidden ones. Right? So now, knowing that they have taken crafty counsel against us and they've consulted against us and, they're looking to convict innocent blood. I mean, there's no judgment for us with them, right? They keep us, incarcerated. They keep us, overfined. They keep us, under some penalty, right? They continue to afflict and oppress us with this thing called the law. And they've created and made it up. It's not God's law. This is their law. This is man's law. They're trying to mix little nuances of God's law in there and want to say, you all have unalienable rights. But now we can qualify where the unalienable right come from to now say you're not qualified to have it. It only applies to the children of Israel. It only applies to those of us that have the law of life for the heritage, right? Get your hands off of it. Now, you heard me say that they know when it comes to the unalienable right that they cannot create laws that diminish or take away the rights of the people. So here, this is one of their findings, where it says, where rights secured by the Constitution are involved. So when you talk about rights being secured by the Constitution, that speaks about the unalienable right. It's written, it's embedded, in that thing. And although they didn't have us in mind, they can't get past the fact now that it all applied to the children of Israel. We're not chattel, we're not black. We are the rightful owners of the thing that they speak about, and we're claiming our heritage, right? So now let's look at what they said. Where rights secured by the Constitution are involved, there can be no rulemaking or legislation that would abrogate them. You can find that in the Miranda case. See? They understand and don't know this thing to be true. We just need to understand, based on what's written, how to use these things to protect ourselves and stop promoting these weak narratives, that, they used the Constitution and we weren't, thought of, and, they're with 3/5 of the person. Man, we got to stop pushing those weak narratives. They want us to continue pushing those narratives, but they can't use the concept of the Constitution without understanding what the inalienable right is, and now knowing how it's tied to the children of Israel. And God said he only showed these things to Jacob, to Israel, and to the other people he have not known them, and they don't have any right to it, right? So now they're falling on the short end of this understanding, right? Now, let's look at the wisdom of Solomon. That was just one that I pointed out with Miranda. Got another one. The wisdom of Solomon. 14:16, it says, thus, in the process of time, an ungodly custom grown strong was kept as a law. And that's, my friend, is what I'm telling you, based on the mischief of law and how they've tried to take, our law and use it to benefit them by crafting a system of judicial laws together and framing, a standard for which society is supposed to go by. It's a corrupt system. It's not the law of God, but they want to have these little nuances. But one thing they did do is they said, when it comes to the unalienable right and the right that God gave a people, they say, we can't make any laws. We can't do any legislation that's going to diminish and or take these rights away. So we have to take advantage of that, and that's why I've been able to benefit from immunity. Understanding how this unalienable right works, right? Then you look at, let me read that again. Wisdom of Solomon 14:16. It says, thus in the process of time, an ungodly custom grown strong was kept as a law. Now you come to a case called Hurtado versus California. It openly says the state cannot diminish the rights of the people. Now, if you want to talk about the pristine custom to rights, it only applies, as they say, the Creator, have given these rights. The Creator only gave the rights to the children of Israel. So for what they wrote right here, the state cannot diminish the rights of the people. If we stand not as black, if we stand not as residents of the state, but if we understand our heritage, that we are the children of Israel and that's our nationality, it takes a different perspective with respect to how it's looked at, at that point. The state cannot diminish the rights of the people. So here we come standing as the children of Israel and saying God gave us these unalienable rights and this is how we're functioning, this is how we're moving. Then there's no law that the state can put in place that's going to diminish and or stop us from doing what we're doing. Now, mind you, we can't be rambunctious, not that we would be, but, we can't damage a person's, property or, injure people, right? But when it comes to just the basic rights of ingressing and regressing, it's like they can't say anything to us from that standpoint. The Lord our God can and will show us compassion in the land of our captivity. It's only we have not understood, these understandings and this knowledge to this magnitude. And we've been looking for them to explain these things to us. But the Lord our God is giving us an understanding that supersedes the understanding that's in their classrooms and the things that they're teaching their experts and professionals, The way this information has been brought out and the things that I've done, it has baffled, by the grace of God, it has baffled their experts and professionals, right? Deuteronomy 4 and 2. And I'm coming to the close of this. Like I said, this was just something to introduce you guys to something that I was thinking about, a way of being able to share my research and talk and show how I've had immunity and over the years we all, how I've had immunity over the years and how we all can benefit from immunity if we understand who we are as a people, what an unalienable right is, and how to use the law of God over the law of man to where they just said, in the Hurtado versus California, the state cannot diminish the rights of the people, right? We saw in Miranda, it said, where rights secured by the Constitution are involved. Right? And rights secured by the Constitution, this talks about all the rights that God gave us. So when you start looking at what our law is, then their law within the Constitution that they created says we can't touch none of that. But the thing is, we don't know how to stand on that because we've been in captivity. We've been in the land of our captivity. We've been away from our heritage. But now that we're coming back to it, there's power. There's power in being Israel. There's power in being an Israelite. There's a road to immunity, right? Deuteronomy 4:2, it says, ye shall not add unto the word which I command you, neither shall ye diminish aught from it, that ye may keep the commandment of the Lord your God, which I command you. Right? And just looking at this saying, not making any changes and understanding they can't diminish our right. And this is what they're saying. When it comes to the rights of the people, they can't diminish it. The state cannot diminish the rights of the people. We need to understand what our heritage is, what the law is, and we have to stand on that in order to get the benefit from it. Don't change anything, right? It can't be diminished. That's how we receive the benefit from our right, not as a black man, not as chattel, not as property, but as an Israelite. That's our nationality. If you don't want it, then go find your nationality, go find your heritage. But this is for those who understand that we are Israel. This is for those of us who understand that God gave us the law of life for an heritage, right? The Wisdom of Solomon, number 2 and 10, it says, let us oppress the poor righteous man. Let us not spare the widow, nor reverence the ancient gray hairs of the age. They say, let our strength be the law of justice. Let our strength be the law of justice. That's what they've been using. They've created a law of justice, and they've used that as their strength. For that which is feeble is found to be nothing worth. And that's how they've looked at us, as nothing worth. They've used this law that they've created to beat us down, to keep us, oppressed, and to keep us incarcerated, to keep us, like I said, overfined, right? But understanding now that, God is sovereign, God gave his law, his statutes to Jacob, and they can't create laws to diminish the rights of the people. We can come out on top if we understand this thing from, how pristine it is, right? And lastly, I just want to say, Ecclesiasticus 17:11, because this he gave them knowledge. And the them that he gave knowledge is talking about the children of Israel. It's talking about Jacob. It's talking about Israel. He gave them knowledge. He said he hadn't dealt with anybody else. He gave them knowledge and the law of life for inheritance. And that's what we have to stand on. So with that, I want to say shalom, Israel. Hopefully, this right here has been rather edifying, and you guys can see where we're going and what we're getting ready to open up. And a lot of you guys are dealing with history. Now I want to bring this thing from the perspective of our law versus their law, and showing how the law of God is superior and how we can use it in real time in this life, and we can have immunity. With that, I say shalom, Israel.